Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, meanwhile, said earlier today that the U.S. is moving toward removing the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad from power. Here's what he said.
We are considering an appropriate response for this chemical weapons attack, which violates all previous UN resolutions, violates international norms and long-held agreements between parties, including the Syrian regime, the Russian government, and all other members of the UN Security Council. It's a serious matter. It requires a serious response.
What to make of these very rapid developments? Congressman Scott Taylor represents the state of Virginia. He's also a former Navy SEAL, and he joins us right here on set. Congressman, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
So the justification for this is that the Syrian government, the Assad government, used chemical weapons against civilians in Syria. And we're certain that's true. And if it's true, why do you think that Bashar al-Assad, who's been in power for 6 years during this war and withstood all these sanctions, what would be in his interest in doing that?
It's a good question. I mean, look, we know that the chemical weapons are there. They're supposed to be removed under agreement that under the last administration, and Russia as well too. So regardless if folks are trying to figure out who exactly did it, whether it was Assad ordered it himself or who in his government did, the chemical weapons were not supposed to be there, and he bears responsibility for it, and so does Russia.
So what would be the objective of this exactly? Purely humanitarian, to express our displeasure at his use of chemical weapons, or is there a strategic reason that would help the United States?
Well, there's certainly a strategic reason, but let me first say that I think that the world's watching right now. The world is watching for the United States to lead, and whether that is in airstrikes or whether that is simply saying we're going to bring a coalition to the will and to put an end to this war, and hopefully out of this tragic, horrific incident, hopefully that's what the end state that happens is that we actually bring a coalition to the willing to put an end of the suffering that's happening in Syria right now.
And we're certain that by attacking government installations in Syria, we're going to, quote, put an end to the suffering?
Well, that's not what I'm certain about. It's a good question. What I would say to you is, the president has the ability, as you very well know, we have troops that are operating both in the area. The border between Iraq and Syria is disintegrated. There is no border there.
Right.
We have folks that are operating there. It does worry me that we have a lot of great powers, Turkey, Israel, Russia, us, Iran, Hezbollah is there, of course, all playing in the same battle space. So I am worried about deconfliction and greater escalation of conflict. And I would say to you, the president has the power to do a short term, but it's important to say that this is the second administration that's operating off of a use of authorization of military force from a third administration 16 years ago.
Right.
So, that being said, I think it is important that the American people, via the representatives in Congress, take a debate up and figure out where we want to go in Congress and what we want to, where we want to move as a nation. But I do think the world is watching.
That's exactly what doesn't seem to be happening. So this is less than 72 hours ago that we got news of this chemical weapons attack. I don't think any American inspectors, at least publicly, have been to the site itself. We say that we know it was the government of Assad. Maybe it was the government of Assad. But there's a lot we don't know, including how Russia might react to all of this. Does it seem a little premature to start launching strikes so shortly after this event?
That's an excellent question. Look, we don't know all the intelligence. We don't know what the intelligence of the president is seeing. We don't know about the back channels or the communications that are going on between these great powers, of course, as well. As I told you, I'm very worried about Syria itself escalating to a bigger conflict because of the potential for flashpoint with all these great powers playing in the same sandbox and perhaps not the ability to deconflict. I imagine some of that is going on. That being said, it does worry me, and I think from a long-term standpoint, it's important that Congress take this up as a debate and figure out what we're going to do in terms of use of authorization of military force or not.
Again, that's emphatically not happening. That's the opposite of what's happening right now, apparently. So Senator John McCain of Arizona was asked today, should we do this, and what happens if it leads to a wider war with Russia? And I'm quoting him precisely when he said, I don't give a damn. If we get into war with Russia, he said, in effect, we will win. We are the superior military power. Do you think that that's a wise course to invite war with Russia over this?
With all due respect to Senator McCain, who's been around a lot longer than I have, of course, I disagree with him on that point. I think it's important that we try to that we again lead. The world's watching us right now for us to lead, and I think that we can lead and bring Russia with us to try to figure out a solution for the problem that's in Syria. I think that. Look, do I think we can beat Russia in a war? I do, absolutely. But is that in our best interest? No, it's not. I don't think it is. I don't think it's in our best interest. I don't think it's in Russia's. And I don't think it's in the world's best interest for that to happen. So with all due respect to Senator McCain, I just disagree with him.
That seems deranged. Do you think that's a widespread view in the United States Senate? That we should have a war with Russia?
I don't think that's a widespread view.
So do you think, given that we have been told to expect the possibility, at least, of airstrikes imminently, that before launching any such strikes, the U.S. government would coordinate those with Russia, given that there are quite a few Russian personnel and materiel in Syria right now?
Well, as I said, I think it's very important to deconflict. You've seen Israel, for example, has operated in there as well, too, and they've seen Russian-made anti-aircraft missiles being pushed towards Hezbollah. And they have deconflicted with Russia when they've gone in to destroy those things. I think that's necessary for us to do the same thing. But like I said, I think that attack, the whole world now is watching this president, and this is a very different president from the last one. So I think if the president, which he has not done yet, which I think is the smart thing, to not say what we're going to do. You have seen, and I know that you've seen the reports of preparations for a potential strike. You've seen that. I don't know. I don't have any information if he's going to do that. But I will tell you, I believe that this president, if he says he's going to do it, he will do it. And that being said, I think that the other great powers, such as Russia, believe the same thing. So I think that in itself could potentially bring Russia to the table to try to find a solution in Syria.
So the justification for this, of course, was the horrifying footage and photographs of the children who were killed by this apparent sarin gas attack, if in fact that's what it was. But they were killed. And the American ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, said yesterday, 2 days ago, how many more children need to die before the United States steps in? A, do you think it's our obligation to stop the killing in Syria? And B, do you think fewer children will die? Do you think children will stop dying if we do this?
I do think that children will stop dying if we do this. I do believe that we have an obligation as a world to deal with the problem that's in Syria. As I said to you before, Syria in itself, to me, is probably the most dangerous powder keg that's going right now in the world, because it could spiral out of control very quickly, and then a lot more children would die. I was impressed by Nikki Haley. I think she was strong, she was tough, she was direct with the Russians, that they bear some of the responsibility, if not directly, then indirectly, and I back her up 100% with that.
One last question for you, Congressman. Everyone I've spoken to who's been in Syria recently, and been a couple of them, has said that the Assad government, for good or ill, is winning the war against the various insurgencies and is restoring its control over the country, which is to say the country is becoming more stable, maybe not more morally pure, but more stable. Why is that bad?
It's not bad to stabilize a country. It's actually important that we do that. And if you had asked me this question about 3 or 4 days ago, I would tell you that a lot of actors over there, a lot of great powers, were viewing Assad as at least a short-term solution, but not a long-term one, but at least a short-term one. That's all changed now. That's all changed because of the things that have happened on the ground.
Right. Which might make you pretty suspicious of those things. If you were a cynic, not that I am.
I think you should be. I think
I think I should be too.
Which is why I told you that I think that Congress should debate this.
Yes, I think so too. Congressman, great to see you tonight.
Absolutely.
We're going to